stayed loyal. Crewe looked after me, like they really did look after me. I had more of the best young players, like Charlie Savage, Shoulder Shortire, Zidane Iqbal. I thought, I can't stay in Israel. So I spoke to City and they offered me again. Always enjoyed being around, I always enjoyed the company of being around children and you know, I grew up in a big family with, you know, younger nieces and nephews and, you know, friends have always had children and stuff like that. Anyway, but cut long story short, the reason I actually started was I was at Crewe and so I was at Crewe as a kid and I stayed up there for a period of time. But what was happening was I stayed in the middle of nowhere, and I'm a city lad. Do you know what I mean? I used to go to the shops with football. My mates used to go on Friday night, drinking out, have a football at my feet, trying to nutmeg my mates, and you know that ball went wherever I went. The ball went, and when I went up there, I lived in quite a rural place. I actually lived with Steve Holland, who's the assistant England manager now, and. It was the middle of nowhere, and what was happening was I was training during the day, doing a little bit of training in the evening, but then the days when I was meant to be resting, I was going back to the training ground. So any young lad, what you're doing, what's the first thing you want to do? Smash a ball in the net. And what was happening was obviously I was getting the odd niggle and stuff like that. So it was actually Dario Gradi at the time, who said, look, you know, you showed the kids your skills, because I was very good at the ball mastery stuff and I always loved the skills and I always loved doing 1v1. And the academies then didn't start till 9. They didn't have all this pre-academy stuff. That, you know, it was like under 9s. But then Crewe and a few others at the time were like, because the academy was producing good players and they were in League One, they were doing big things. You know, Dario obviously was the messiah of coaching at the time, bringing you through and stuff. So they wanted to start 7 and 8s. So there was me and the guy who takes the reserves there now, Alex Morris, who used to play for the first team. He was a great coach, unbelievable coach. And Neil Critchley, who's the manager of Blackpool. Yeah, he's the manager of Blackpool. It's crazy, mate, when people end up. We set up the pre-academy. And I didn't really know how to talk to the kids or anything. The only thing I knew to do was get them on the ball, give them as many touches as you can. And Dario kind of went, right, that's your job. I went, what? He went, like, I don't want you. And he turned around to me, I don't want to deal with them. Like, you know what I mean? So he threw me in. And I just learned to, like, you know, when I look back and cringing at, like, the way I coached and the way I acted, but the one thing I've never lost from that moment is like enthusiasm. Because you need enthusiasm, you need drive for them ages to, like, really, you know, you could be in the most horriblest training environment in the whole world, but it's the energy and what the coach brings lights it up. You know, you can have the best facilities in the world, mate, but it's the person, it's the coach, what develops the players. It's not where you're at. You can do it in a car park. And Crewe wasn't great. We had an indoor facility, which was relatively new, like a dome. It wasn't fancy. It was like, you know, we had mate do like boards, and instead of buying these rebound boards, like the bloody ground staff were getting shed panels and, you know, painting them. And like, honestly, mate, we had all sorts going on. You do a demo and the board would split in half. And the kids would be like, well, you're like, oh, it's killed me. Fuck's sake, again. Like, and that's where it started. And then I got injured. I left Crewe. I came back to Manchester and I went to Stockport. But Dario said, look, I want to stay here. I want to stay here coaching. And they were offering me, I remember it, £20 a session. But you got to remember, like, so I had a group of, say, 12 under 7s or under 8s at the time. From Manchester to Crewe, it's an hour. Yeah. You've got 40 minutes before you set up. Yeah, you're mapping your session out, setting up. Kids are arriving, parents are arriving, so you need that time before. You've got a 2-hour session, and then you've probably got half an hour after it. So for £20, doesn't even cover your fuel. You're going up there. But then what I was doing was we always trained 5 to say 6:30, 7, and then the older academy lads used to come in. So then I used to jump in with like Steve, or jump in with Terry Matt Phillips, who used to be the manager of Blackpool as well, who was at Blackburn with, or James Collins, who's now the head of coaching at Wolves. or Critch, and I used to do that for free. So what I used to do was like 4 days a week was do the younger ones, but then I'd stay and do the older ones after it. And people used to go, "Oh, fucking hell, you're mad." And I go, "Listen, like, if you know what I'm listening to and what I'm watching, right, it's priceless." So I actually done a post today. I actually seen the post I put on social media today, because it's funny, like, you know, a few people sent me a few things, and you know, it's going back to where did I start? Well, I started with this young lad who was a talented player, but unfortunately due to injuries, like, kind of fell out of love of the playing side and just fell in love with the coaching side. And you know, Sunday mornings, my mates are going out Saturday nights at 17, 18. I'm going home at 12 because I'm looking forward to getting up at 7 o'clock to be with the kids at 9 o'clock at Crewe. So I've got to drive there an hour and set up. And you know, them days would never leave me, because that was an investment into my career of where I got to, you know. You know, the people who were in that building at the time, some of the most influential people in football ever, you know, in England. So I used my brain, and you know, I got offered, you know, big clubs would offer you double money to come and do stuff, and it's all about recruitment with the younger ones. And I stayed loyal. Crewe looked after me, like, they really did look after me. Like, literally, they were selling season tickets to give me money, you know, like, because they'd seen how valuable I was, you know. And I went from setting the younger ones up to then being around the under 18s, you know, and then I moved on then to Blackburn after Crewe. But my time at Crewe, you know, and I still say to this day, you know, it's one of the best, hardest working football clubs in the country for coaches and players, because you learn your trade. You know, you've got to dig in, because not everyone's going to give you everything, because the resources aren't there. Yeah. And it's a platform to develop yourself, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player. It's an opportunity which you can compare yourself to others at whatever level, and you can see where, you know, your work's going. You get ownership earlier if you're good, if that makes sense. Whereas, you know, you look at some of these other bigger clubs, they you know, there's 2 coaches per group, you know, there's people above them. We were doing, like, I was turning up, you're doing the kit, you're pumping the balls up, you're doing the recruitment, you're taking the session, then you're doing the welfare bit at the end, the registers at the start and the end. You know, you're trying to sign players. If a kid comes in, you're trying to get him over the line. God knows how we got some players over the line. Like, we really it was great time. It's a great time, great club. And, you know, people always say to me, "Well, would you ever? Do you not think you wasted time there?" And I went, "No, because the knowledge I've got, people will never have." Never have. Yeah. You know, I remember the first time I coached with Dario. Listen to this. This is the best one. No, this is the best one. So the day before I coached with Dario, Charlton Athletic were coming down to play Tranmere. So what used to happen was, first teams used to, like, say, "Oh, can you jump on your pitch before the day before to do some set pieces," or whatever it was. And so me, Neil Critchley, Steve Holland, a few others are all on the sideline. And Dario's, it's like the training ground's Dario's home. So Dario's running around the fucking pitch with his top off, right? Blazing sun. Yeah, like madness. Like, so Charlton turn up, and it was Jason Buell, manager. And so Dario goes over, "Hi, Jason, you know, Jason's dead respectable, and all these first team players coming over, like, you know, "Hi, Dario, nice to meet you," because they all knew who he was. And he keeps running around anyway. So they start doing a technical practice. He keeps running around. Then they get into like 11. So I'm standing down the fence trying to be like inconspicuous, you know what I mean? Everyone knew he was there. Fucking Dario stood on the side of the pitch, the other side. And he starts coaching the left back. "Son, you're doing it all fucking wrong." I'm going. You're losing the fucking plot. Like, it's not his team. But because they were on the pitch, and fair play to Jason Ewell at the time, he's like gone, "Oi, you fucking listen to him." Like, and this kid, like, I bought him, but this gaffer like that, yeah. And he's bless him, his knees have gone, and he's like hobbling around a little bit, and he's trying to demonstrate how to take the ball on his back foot and set it and then spin. And it was like he just couldn't switch off, because his knowledge is like unbelievable. So anyway, the next day, who am I with? Dario. So I walk in, he goes, "Oi, you're with me." That's what he spoke like. "Oi, you're with me." And he was like one of them figures there. You got to remember, he was Crewe Alexander Football Club.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, "All right, hey, okay, I'm coming with you." Do you know what I mean? Like, whatever. Like young lad there. Like, I'm Dario. And they're all going like that. All going to all the best for that one, mate. Like that. Do you know what I mean? So he's gone, "Right, I want you to do a crossing session." These are under 16. So this group was Nick Powell, who went to Man United, Max Clayton, top player. I'm trying to think who else is in there. There's like quite a few others who now play in the first team still. Really talented group of players, which I knew, and I had a good relationship and I was confident with them. But I didn't spend that much time with Dario to go and knew the way he works. Now, he was the most simplest, effective coach I have ever seen. I'm talking, if you're doing passing, you are passing the ball forward and backward a million times, right foot, left foot, yeah, until you get it immaculate. If it takes 2 hours, it takes 2 hours. That's what we're doing. So I'm doing like a session where, right, the midfielder gets it, ping it out to the winger, you're working on the winger's time in the run. So I can see him rubbing his head. I'm thinking, he's coming for me in a minute. He's fucking coming for me in a minute. And I'm thinking, it's Dario, he ain't gonna be fucking sold. So next thing, like, I can see him walking over. Come here, son. Strip 99.9% back of that section and just do the 1%. And he had a cracking left foot, yeah. He still had it to like, so balls come into it, and he's just gone, "Right, son, do it like this." Bam, whipped it in. So then he's gone, "Right, Mark, you demo on the right." I've gone, "Fucking hell, you want me to be that demo?" I went, "Are you fucking kidding me?" It took me 3 goals to get the ball where I wanted it. And it was just like repetition, like bam, out, bam. Touch out your feet cross, touch out your feet cross, touch out your feet cross. And then working on crossing areas, and he worked with a striker on the time of the run. And I was just, do you know what? I just found so much enjoyment in having 50 footballs. The players loved it because they're just working constantly. They're running, they're moving, and there's information coming everywhere. And you know, it was an amazing time for me. And then Dario obviously stepped back to the first team, and he was out of the first team because then, and then I moved to Blackburn. But I was fortunate when I went to Blackburn. Terry Matt Phillips was the under-18s coach. He was head of coaching. So, and the guy who was doing like the FA mentoring at the time was a guy called Jamie Robinson. He heads up like the pro license now for the FA, top man. But he used to coach me as a kid at Crewe. So he remembers me, and there's certain things at Crewe which the players learn to kick the ball right and left really well. Spend a lot of time kicking the ball against the walls. When they arrive, there's balls there. The kids getting a habit striking the balls with the laces, getting the balance on both sides. Another thing is dragging. So the way they manipulate a player, moving them left and right to like get my balance to shoot, dribble or pass. And the other one's like screening the ball, so protecting the ball from the back. And it was so nice to walk into an environment, because when you walk into a new football club, you don't know what that. You can have all that knowledge, but you might be limited with how you can use that knowledge, because they've got a methodology and a philosophy. So sometimes, even though you're the best coach where you've come from, or you've been really effective, you're out of your comfort zone. So for me to go to Blackburn, I was quite fortunate because they were relying on me to bring quite a lot there, especially in the younger years. But with the older years, it was near enough the same. The only thing that was different was they were a Premier League club. They were like 4th in the Prem at the time. The club were back in the academy unbelievably well. You've gone from probably a 400 grand budget to say £3 million budget in the academy. This is for all the Triple P as well. Yeah. And went to Blackburn and worked with some fantastic people. Gary Bowyer, what a fucking coach, what a man. One of the funniest guys in football I've ever worked with in my life. Steve Nixon now is the head of recruitment for Newcastle's first team. He's been there under Rafa, been there under all of them. You know, what I learned about recruitment from him is absolutely unreal. And what happened at Blackburn was it was a real top achieving, producing football club, but with a lot of hard working, good people. You know, you can have great coaches, but having great people who want to back each other and support each other, the environment's just like, it's so positive. Even when you walk in, it's just that warmth. No matter who you are, you notice it, you feel it. And we all work with each other really well. And you had Mike Pribley now, who's head of recruitment at Everton. Trying to think, Terry McPhillips, Tony Grant, who's played for Everton City. You know, great guy, unbelievable knowledge. Trying to think who else was in there. Who was at the time.
I was going to say, do you think that you was like, because obviously both those environments were, like you said, really good learning opportunities, and you know some coaches don't get that opportunity where they might go to a club and you know it's maybe not run in the particular way which sort of aligns to their values. Do you feel as though it was something where you kind of onboarded with the values of what the club was kind of portraying, or do you kind of feel as though it was these good influences?
Well, what happened with me was I was making noises at Crewe because I had my own business, my own coaching business, and I started a coaching business on a park with 3 kids, who were like under 6, 7s at Man United and City. And I just knew these kids for ages. But my feet when I was younger, like, they're all right now. I do a bit, but sharp when I was younger. I used to love it. I used to do a lot of like the Brazilian soccer school stuff. I used to go to Leeds because there wasn't soccer schools then. So Simon Clifford, the guy, used to run that. You know, we used to do the football, the salon balls, and it was all about repetition and dexterity on the ball and being tactile with the ball. Some people never had that. All they had was a tackle, shot, you know, they could run, and that was it. Whereas, you know, my game was very much around being creative. Now, I was probably one of the kids where I kept the ball too long because no one ever told me anything different, you know what I mean? And then the game started, I'd say in the last 10 years, become more tactical, when and where, choices, decision making. You know, you look at the way the game's dissected now, it's like a new game, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's a new human being who's involved in the game. It's a new type animal, and the way people talk, the way people think, the way people plan, the way people assess, the way people deliver, the game changed completely. You know, I look back at myself, I look at videos of myself back through. But my knowledge of where I'm standing and the way I'm affecting the game, I'm like, wow, like, do you know what I mean? It's scary, mate. Scary, it is. But going back to what you said, I went to Blackburn because I had Man City and I had a few other big clubs asking me to go. But I kind of still wanted to be that bigger fish in a smaller pond, and I just didn't want to be a number. Do you know what I mean? And the reason I went to Crewe as a kid was because there was offers from other clubs, but I think just having that more family environment, togetherness meant a lot more for me. That was just me as an individual, and it was a good club because we had like specialists in all different areas, especially in like sports science. I really started to buy into the sports science stuff and the physio, the medical side, through a guy called Russ Wrigley there. Russ Wrigley's been there for years. Yeah, unbelievably good at what he does. And sometimes it takes someone to take you off your feet to show the word for you to start to buy it. And that's when I think I really started to change as a coach and started to become a lot more logical around my timings of my sessions, the intensity of my sessions, my focus in the sessions, my physical outcomes. So yeah, it was good, really good.
No, I love that. I love the way as well, like you said, the way you break it down, and also it seems to be like these 2 early sort of environments that you went into. It wasn't just perceived as, you know, a job in inverted commas. It was more so you wanted to learn, and you was learning off of these people. And I think that, you know, we say to players, like, put yourself out of your comfort zone, like, you know, put yourself forward, show what you can do, be confident in the decisions that you make. And I think that you kind of done that as a coach. because hence why, like, you know, you could have, like I said, fallen into the trap of becoming a small fish in a big pond, but you was like, no, do you know what? I want to be a big fish in a small pond and really hone in my influence of what I'm about and what I can bring to the table. And I think that obviously shows credit to yourself, and then obviously making that transition over to Blackburn. And I was going to say, because I remember when you mentioned about the sort of like the small technical details. Do you ever remember that thing, Yoga Benito, the little 3v3 competition?
So I did before futsal was futsal.
Yeah.
So the football de sala was probably the first heavy ball game in the country. Like you look at football, that was like 4v4, 5v5, and then Yoga Benito coming. Nike brought the ball in, didn't it? Yeah. And then futsal kicked off then, didn't it? After that, futsal kicked off. But the thing is with it, for me, was a ball's a ball. You know, I used to keep with the people in school used to go, Mark, keep that up, and it'd be could be a can, it could be a tennis ball, could be a squash ball, could be a bloody table tennis ball, and for me, playing with a different size of balls was massive, because your dexterity and your feel changes. Now,
100%.
if you can adapt to use a real small ball, when you get a bigger ball, it's like a balloon. It's easy, you know. And you know, some people, you know, I think this day and age, if someone thinks out the box a little bit, they're like, he's a weirdo, what's he doing? It's all that, man. Whereas, like, one guy I, you know, still speak with or spoke with at the time was Dan Machici, the guy from MK Dons. Yeah, Deli Ali. He's Mr. Deli Ali, isn't he? And he used to talk about some of the stuff he used to do there. You know, one of my good friends who's travelled the world with Patrick Vieira is Christian Wilson. Used to be at City.
Yeah.
You know, he's been at New York City. You know, he's at Palace now with him, first team coach at Palace. And me and Christian used to do the same job at Man City. But then he basically went 2123s, and then I overseen the academy. But what going back to what you're saying is, we both used to be so thoughtful. You know, the game isn't just about the tactical side. You've got to get people moving right and being able to be so adaptive to any environment with the ball coming in. And to do that, you've always got to put pressure on developing reactions, or the technical does cross the physical for me massively. It's movement, it's feel. And people like that, they do think out the box, because that's why they're doing what they do. You know, people come to me. I'd like to think people come to me for advice and help, not just because of the demonstrations, but the process of thought. And also, I'd like to think the process of thought with a product of affected these people. I can tell you when this person started. I can tell you when this person was in this place. I can tell you when this person started to show progress in different areas. And it takes years. You're not doing it in 6 weeks. It takes years. And it's got to become a passion. You know, it's got to become a passion. I'm walking down the road in Thailand the other day. You know, I don't necessarily come here to do any football work. I've come here to speak to people about a few things. Walking past, you know, a group of kids, a ball's come to me. I've kicked the ball, and the kids have gone, skill. So I'm like, all right, no problem. Next thing, I've got 30 kids around me, you know, and I'm loving it, because that's the way I've always been as a kid, you know, and it's a mindset, mate. It's a mindset, and it's, you know, being the best coach. And if you want to be the best coach, I think the big thing for me is you've got to practice what you preach, the way you live,
100%.
the way you look after your body, the things you say, what you can't ask someone to do this, but you can do this. I think, you know, you've got to somehow be able to replicate it. And I think that is more powerful than someone who's a conductor. Like, I'm going to get your control through fear. It's more get your control through respect. I always believe 100%. In that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was going to say, do you know what I mean? I was going to say is that, like, so interesting, because I always say that usually the transition goes from player to coach to educator, and obviously you pretty class yourself as a coach, but in my eyes, you're more than a coach. You're an educator, because, like you just said there, I think a coach is almost that facilitator of the learning and implementing the learning. But I think that you take it to that next level of, you know, really not only implementing these learning techniques, but understanding why you're doing it, putting influence onto players and onto coaches to, like you said, and I think this is what kind of makes coaching a job as opposed to just a hobby, or just as opposed to sort of
a lifestyle, mate.
He does.
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's that transition of you being able to do it, but like you said, have an end output as well. So it's not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but it's doing it with the intention of being able to, like you said, create good people, potentially good players. And like you said, it's that mindset that's so interesting and which is so spoken about, really, because people just talk about, like you said, the technical stuff or the tactical stuff, and not opposed to the mindset stuff as well.
I think a big thing is what I've learned is you've got to remember now. So I've probably been out of a full-time football role at a club for probably just under 2 years because I've been doing what I'm doing. I went through a little bit of a tough time myself, which I've been open about. Spoken nationally, to the football world about that. And but one of the biggest learning curves was I always wanted to be the best coach. So not the best coach as in I'm better than you, but I always wanted to push myself against myself. So I wasn't bothered about someone else. And I'd always and I always do it now, I get a lot of young, inspiring coaches, all the time. You'll get it yourself, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I'll always try and give my time up as much as I possibly can. And the one thing what I go down to is football's an easy market to make money. Everyone knows a bit about it. There's a million one-to-one coaches. There's a million academies, private academies. There's a million people who see it as a business, which is fine. We're all different. But I gave up a massive. We were a big business, Cheshire Football. What I built up, and Cheshire Football started from just producing good players. So the reason I went to Blackburn was I had more of the best young players like Charlie Savage, Shoulder Shortire, Zidane Iqbal, Jordan Harrison, Tommy Wardell-Bashuru, Jonathan, David Brooks, Bournemouth. Who else is in there? Marco Lopez, played for Monaco, played for City. He's in Sevilla now, playing in Sevilla. I'll name the list all day. Phil Foden, I can bang them on all day of the week. Like, they used to come to us. So they used to be at City Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I used to have a group on a Tuesday night, which was like United, Everton, Stoke, a few Blackburn kids. And then on a Thursday night, or on a Friday night, we'd have like Liverpool, City. And these were lads at 6, 7, 8. Now, Cole Palmer, James McAtee, all these boys, Noah Ohio was at Liverpool Salzburg. Now, we were together every opportunity. The season finished, we were together any day there was a day off. And the reason they came, some of them travelled an hour and a half for an hour session, was obviously the level of the group, but then they were getting something they weren't getting at the clubs they were getting. And that's where, for the time I was at Blackburn, there was a niche of the work we were doing. We're making big impacts because everyone was buying into it. Everyone was buying into it from the bottom to the top. The first team, the under-18s, in the 2 seasons we were there, we got to the semi-final Youth Cup. Blackburn, little old Blackburn Rovers, we got to the semi-final Youth Cup. Got absolutely smashed by Chelsea. Destroyed. But what I'm saying is we had good players. We had players who, were trying to play football, and some clubs who weren't in the top 5, they were winning games by fighting, being direct. We've got players who were brave on the ball. We've got players who were, we might lose a game 6-0, but they were trying the right things. They might not have all gone and played for Blackburn, but a lot of them had good careers. And that's because they've had that belief. And it comes back to what I'm saying is, to get players to be like that, you can't just read a manual or watch something on YouTube or listen to a podcast. You've got to buy into that way of working. And that takes time because you've got to support your own beliefs and you've got to find evidence to support your own beliefs and you've got to see it. Once you see it, you go, wow, should have done this a million years ago. But that's where, I say to these young lads, or I see all these people, is you don't take time out to develop yourself. It's all good. The amount of times players, you won the Premier League, you're a top player. I won't name names. I had lads who won the Champions League who wanted to do the coaching badges come to me. come and like, oh, do me A license or do me a B license. You couldn't talk to the kids.
Yeah.
You got like unbelievable experience. You couldn't talk to the kids. So how do you get that to there? Well, there's an issue in there. It's like having a phone with no charger, or it's like, you know, having information or being a genius and not having a mouth. Sometimes some people just haven't got that skill set. You know, it's all fantastic. And what I used to do, me, purposely, I put them with the under 18s where they feel comfortable. Yeah. And I go and put them with the under 8s. Go on then.
100%.
How many cartoon characters do you know, mate? You know, how many different houses have you got to get in their head? And they'll be like, oh, this is too much. You know what I mean? But it comes back down to, like, even when I climbed the ladder, and, you know, the next step I went to when I went to City was when I was at Blackburn. The under 6, 7, 8s were just as important as the under 18s for me.
That's class.
I probably enjoyed that more than what I loved being around the older lads, because the conversations are just normal conversations and the banter into it, you know what I mean? Yeah. But the energy and the enthusiasm and you know, the happy-go-lucky kids walking through the door. The amount of kids I seen walk through that door, I seen kids walk through crying, the parents dragging them in. They're now playing in the Premier League. You know, like, them stories are, you know, they're valuable.
100%. I was gonna say, it's so interesting because like, I'm exactly the same. I much rather prefer, like I said, I can get on with like the older age groups, and you know, I can understand how I need to implement things a little bit differently, or the way in which it would work. But I much prefer the 5-year-olds. Honestly, like, give me 5-year-olds, and I'm not talking about, and I'm not even gonna say I'm coaching them, because I'm not coaching them. It's just almost putting on an environment where, you know, there's some football activity going on. But I much prefer that, because I went to like a keynote speech the other day, and they spoke about kids. You know, kids are dreamers, they're believers. You know, anything that you say to them, what do you want to become? They'll believe that they can become that. As time goes on and you speak to, say, for example, an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old, and they're getting on that little last hinge of like, you know, am I going to become a footballer? Am I not going to become a footballer? Their dreams start to die. Their beliefs start to die. And I know as a coach, you know, your sort of role is to try and carry on that inspiration and say, like, look, you know, like you just said there, the time you put away from when you're here with me is what's going to help you. But yeah, that younger age group, it's so, there's so much of a fun and enjoyable environment. And I think, like you said, I've spoken to so many players when they've gone into coaching and they've tried to do that younger age group. And like you said, they'll be like, no, I'll go with the older age groups, because of that thing, they can't communicate effectively with them.
Yeah, listen, I started my coaching. So when I started my business, you know, I was lucky because I started my business working with the best players, some of the best players in the country, like outside of the football club I was at. I was working with better players in my own business at the time. Now, that's not being disrespectful to Crewe, because some of the Crewe's long-term potential players were very good. But I'm talking some of the big hitters at them times who are now big hitters. Yeah. And I think that's where I had a step ahead on a lot of people was I was just constantly coaching. But I was constantly coaching the right type of players in the right environment. And then what happened was, to get me better, I started to grow my business. So we started to deal with schools. We started to deal with youth offending teams. We started to deal with nurseries. You're talking completely different ways of talking. You know, how do you manipulate a group? How do you get their attention? How much time do you talk? How much time do you let them work? Yeah. How many more people do you need involved in this? So you start to assess things, and you start to, like, the older you get, solve problems so quick now. You give me, like, I always say this, like, joking, you give me a bill to pay, I'd probably take a week to pay it. Yeah. You give me 30 players, a bag of balls, 2 nets, a bag of bibs. Listen, we're working within seconds, like, within seconds, piece of cake, and solve it. You know, it's just life skills, because I've been in that environment that much. I find it so comfortable and I get so much joy from it. It's one of them where it's so important to be in different environments, because you never know what environment. You know, you could plan for 10 players, have 20, you could plan for 10, have 2. Well, for 2, you can still get the same outcome, but you might have to work a little bit harder. Now, some people, when they become coaches, they go, oh, the reason I'm coaching is the knees have gone. Well, sometimes with coaching, you've got to get involved, because how I've learned about some players is, I've actually joined in. And when you join in and you're in there and you're with them, you see how quick they think, you see how fast they pick up stuff. You know, I'm not saying that every coach can do that, but there's so many ways of assessing players, there's so many ways of assessing learning, there's so many ways of monitoring where people are at. And there's a million learning styles as well, and that's the other thing what people need to be so considerate of. And that's what, from working in playgrounds, from working after school clubs, from working with first teams, from taking teams to the Champions League, you know, winning the FA Cup with the women at Wembley, you know, to Ruben, my little boy, playing, you know, and being a dad. I've learned so many things from them experiences. And I remember when I was younger and I look back, you know, probably a little bit of a smart ass, you know, when you think, no, I'm all right, you know, yeah, I can do a bit of fit, you know, yeah. But really, you've got nothing here. You've got the demonstrations, you've got the ability of a little bit of knowledge and passing it on, but you've not got that skill set of how you communicate and articulate and how you plan and how you make people feel and how you keep people on board even when they're not involved in the sessions, you know. And that comes through me learning off others, not through me just being a genius. Because a million people go, oh, I've got a new session. Well, where have you got it from then? Come on, do you know what I mean? Or what's inspired you to get it? You know, you don't just think it's inspired you all the time. And that's where I was at. That's where I was at, mate.
Nice, it's class. And like you said, the way of like, you know, I know that myself, like I didn't even get into a football team until I was age 13, just because there wasn't that many teams in my area at the time. And I've always said that that's probably one of my inspirations of getting involved in football, because I kind of want to implement opportunities and chances and mindsets, like you said, for those people who are similar age groups, obviously younger as well, who will get those opportunities, because I'll help to make sure that those opportunities and those environments are flourishing and are created and things like that. And it's just so interesting the way in which, like you said, you built it up in that sense. Interestingly as well, like, so obviously you said you moved on to obviously Man City, and you know you've done 2 different types of roles there in terms of the academy, and I know you was there for around 8 years or so, and then obviously you went into the environment of the Man City women's team. Like, well, number one, what was that time like? Because obviously Man City, you know, growing. You know, like you said, becoming a lot more of a bigger club in terms of the financial backings and opportunities that people had. But then also as well, like, what was it like working there full time? And was there any sort of challenges or barriers or things like that that came along whilst you was in that environment almost?
I got asked to go to City 3 times. And I stayed at Blackburn. And then what happened was the Venky's come in. So the Venky's bought the club. So I was in a place where I was balancing running quite a successful business and having the freedom of coaching at Blackburn. And then what happened was the EPPP come in. So then to support your categorisation of where you are, Cat 1, Cat 2, you had prerequisites, what you had to have as a club. And part of that was so many full-time staff in a certain area, so many people in a certain department had to be involved. And the club obviously wanted me to head up the young years, oversee the recruitment. And it was getting to a point where I was going to commit, and I was going to drop the business and just focus on that. And then what happened was the Venky started selling the Samba, started selling Yakubu, Phil Jones, all the top players, the man in midfield, Stephen Nzonzi, people like that, like top players, the Olsen brothers, who were Blackburn through and through, you know, they were going. And next thing, the training round, and what happened was the place started to change, and I thought, this could be my time. So I don't know if you know this, I actually went to Israel after Blackburn. So I turned City down, and I went to work with the Israeli FA, and I went to Maccabi Tel Aviv. And Maccabi Tel Aviv at that time, Jordi Cruyff was the manager. And the move was all done through, remember, Ayel Berkovic, played for City. So Ayel Berkovic was like a mutual friend through someone else. And he seen me coach, so he wanted me to work with his boys. Ronnie Rosenthal was out there as well. He wanted me to work with a few players. And then the Maccabi Tel Aviv thing was like, look, come and do a session. You do a session, you got a job. So we did a session. They were like, bam. These Russian owners were like, we want you. And it was like a great contract. And I remember it was around when I left Blackburn. It was around. It must have been around just when the season started in September. And what happened was Israel was great. It was great. I stayed with Robert Earnshaw. Remember Robert Earnshaw?
Yeah.
He was there. He was on Big Dough at the time. And there was no structure for the kids. There was no structure for the kids there. And it was good. But then what was happening was, off the pitch, there was a lot of politics going on in the world between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And my missus at the time was pregnant with Reuben. And I was out there for my family, I was out there for my family. And Blackburn, we wrote money, the money wasn't coming in, and I had to work, I just didn't want to jump at the City thing straight away because the owners bought the club, but they didn't put the money where the mouth was, if that makes sense. So it's still a good club, but the changes weren't there. And then I thought, I can't stay in Israel. So I spoke to City and they offered me again, and it was David Platt and a guy called Trevor Todd, who does the recruitment for City. He's one of the best guys in football I've ever met in my life. I said, look, come, tell us what you need. And basically, I come from Israel, went to there, and I became the technical coach for the academy. And it was a completely different. It was an open book. And if I'm honest, like Scott Sellers, who's probably one of the most knowledgeable, like forward-thinking coaches you have ever met in your life, was like, look, you've got such a skill set. I just don't know where you're gonna fit, but we want you here. Like, and I kind of for a month, like, I did nothing other than join in as a player. I was like with the 18s and 23s the whole first month, just like joining in. Attilio Lombardo bombing me like, no, you're in midfield. Like this. He thought I was a player. Like, I'm going, hang on. The coach, like, no, when you play properly or you leave. And like, come here to coach, killing me. But that month was great because I got to see everything. I got to see how the academy worked. I got to see how the current coaches worked. I got to see how the current program worked. And from a learning curve, watching Mancini, watching Attilio, Patrick was getting involved then. Patrick was just starting to get involved. Scott Sellers, Adam Sadler, the technical director for Leicester. He's done their whole thing on their journey. Sad's what a man, funny man. But the thing what really started to change at City was the tactical side was massive. And when I come back to like what I say, when you're at a football club and you're used to working a certain way, it could be you're used to working where your team play 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. A 6 and a 4 is different at other clubs than what a 6, 8, 10 is at Man City. So you're going, like questioning yourself a little bit. What is he, a right-sided attacking midfielder, or no? He's a 10. You're like, well, what do you mean a 10? And everyone's like looking at you like, who's this guy? You don't even know what a 10 is. Like, going, hang on, like a 10 for me is like someone who plays in behind a striker, or you know what I mean. So it took time to get used to that program because they were the first club to have full-time coaches in the academy. In the country, they went full-time, one coach every age group. So I had to then start to like, what's hard for me was you had some real good coaches, but you had a lot of like strong-minded people. So it's kind of like their team. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it became this is my team, right? It's not your team, it's Man City's team. So we're here to develop players from City. So can you imagine the conversations? And I'm like, I'm only 26, 25. This strong-minded young lad, very knowledgeable, used to managing people who are a lot older than me anyway. I'm used to these conversations, but some people weren't used to having these conversations. Yeah. So it wasn't the football. It was also, I dealt to deal with people in a completely different way again. The money was there, the training ground plans came in place. My role then became, for the first 2 years, was working with, say, the 15s to the 23s, doing a lot of the technical work, hammering the passing, receiving stuff, hammering the receiving stuff, the movement, the awareness stuff, you know, talking about angles, distances, which foot, preparation. Because what was happening was the tactical work at first was quite predominant. So you go into a lot of possession-based stuff and skip the technical stuff because certain coaches believe that they deal with it in it. But I was like, no. You need to strip people back. People need repetition of movement. And then the more they repeat a movement, the more comfortable they feel doing it under pressure. So it was interesting because some people loved it, bought into it, they could see what it was bringing. And some people, I think, were just conscious of, you don't want to undo their work, what was already going on. So it took time, and eventually everyone bought into it. And then what happened then was, you know, I started to work with my favourite group. What I worked with was a Thursday. So when we started the St. Bede's project, we used to have year 9 to year 11. It wasn't at year 7 what it is now. So the first group was like, I'm trying to think off the top of the head, Angelino Tasende, Bert Santalina, Brandon Barker, Jason Denea, Marco Lopez, Dennis Suarez, who else? Emma Hughes, Olivia Encham, Celtic. Who else is there? Who else? Like, so many were playing. And what I'm saying was, we used to group them into midfielders, into strikers, into wingers. And I used to take a lot of the midfielders. So, you know, you could have groups like Olivia Encham, you could have Jack Byrne, you could have, who else in there? Marco Lopez, Dennis Suarez. Then you'd sometimes as well, when you'd have like players, first team players injured, because they used to see the technical work they used to do. You know, you get people like Yaya Toure, you get people like Gail Clichy, you know, as a left back, but he wants to do receiving, he'll come in, you know, Kolarov, Zabaleta, Paulo Zabaleta, you know, and you're like, you know, and you know, I don't care who you are, these are big names. So you've got to be on top of your game, you know, but then you've also got to keep it cool and back where you're at. You know, Scott Sellers was amazing. Mark Allen was fucking unbelievable with me. He's now academy manager at Swansea. He was like, what you bring and what you do. Another guy who's really influential for me is Matt Cook, who's the S&C, who's followed Patrick everywhere. He's at Palace now as well. He is probably the best, most methodical, strictest S&C I've ever met in my life. But he's all for the players, which some people, unfortunately, football, I think, you know, it's good money in the game, and if they want to climb the ladder, and you know, maybe the passion for the players' development comes secondary to the results, and I think we do that sad. But some great people, you know. I did that 2 years. Then I went back into taking a team. Started to just take the under 10s. I took the under 10s. Went back into the foundation. Loved it. Started to do the tours. Started to manage the groups. You know, loved being around the younger players. And then within 6 months of me doing that, I then went in with Nick Cushion to do the women. Yeah. So we both started part-time on that. Both started part-time, you know, managing, coaching it, and just seeing the WSL grow. We did that. I also, before that, I was doing the stuff with Patrick and Christian. So then that was when the EBS stuff was really like, Simon Davis, what a guy, who went to Anderlecht Company. You know, he bought into the technical stuff when he was doing the 18s, 23s. And then that's when I started to spend more and more time with the Metro brothers, Phil, Raheem, Jaden. Trying to think who else is in that group. Luke Bolton, what a player. Ty Campbell, Stoke, you know, what a player. Tommy Wardell Bashuru, what a player. There's been so many, mate. There's been so many, you know. And then you've got players who got recruited in, who you work with. Yeah. It was just great experience, mate. Great experience. And then going back to the female side was, I never thought I'd work in female football, you know, in my life, in the women's game. Never thought. It just, at one point, just did not intrigue me. for many reasons, you know, being disrespectful, the physicality of the players, the intensity of the game, you know. I didn't realise how passionate some of these female players were. You know, some of the best players I've ever coached, females. Some of the hardest working female player I've ever worked with. Well, there's two, but you know, it's Carly Lloyd, Ballon d'Or winner, World Cup winner twice. She set a whole new level of precedence of discipline, passion, commitment. You know, I'm talking up here, and I've seen thousands of players. Yeah, this girl was on another level, mate. Like, you check yourself. Do you know what I mean? Which many people at the time, I thought I kept my standards high and you know, tried my best to always be a role model and do the right things, and always tried to, you know, be the best version of me by pushing me. But she was another level, man. She was fucking like obsessed, and that obsession, look what it's got her. You know what I mean? Look what it's got her, and you know, working with her and people like Jill Scott, who's a player with, but she's a good friend and someone I'll always help and guide. You know, not just naming them, I could reel them all off. It's like 10 in England set up now who you know, super close to and always will be and always be here for him, because take the football away. Good people, mate. Good people. 100%. They want to get better, you know. And if you're a good person, you want to get better. People are always going to give you that time.
100%. It's so interesting because obviously, like I said, you'd almost done a lot of your learning and experiences even before you came to City. But I think that, you know, it's even enhanced it even further when you've been in that environment. Like some of the names you was mentioning there, and what I found so interesting is that it doesn't necessarily mean it was Manchester City who created this environment, but maybe just all of you being in and around each other and having those positive vibes, having those thoughts, having those discussions. But you look at now how many players from Man City have gone into the world of coaching. Like you said about Vincent Kompany, you've got, I know, Yaya Touré's getting into coaching, you know, Craig Bellamy and Gail Clichy and you know what I mean? All these different people. And like I said, Patrick Vieira, Christian Wilson. And it's almost like there was like a cohort of you there and you've all made each other grow and learn and feel those experiences.
Sounds mad, but do you know what? A big thing for me, which is powerful in the right way, sharing knowledge, social media. So how we've met through social media. Yeah. During lockdown, I had people from Ghana, China, Jamaica, Malaysia, Thailand, Scandinavia. Like, I was doing webinars, I was doing, you know, presentations, I was doing the odd session to help people. But the power of social media has also helped me stay connected to my friends, and it's also a real good tool to share. And you know, I think what's really important is like this now is amazing for me because I'm thinking about what I'm saying, even though you're not really. I know I'm doing all the talking, but I'm reflecting, you know, and this is the thing is, you know, it doesn't have to be. I'm blessed that I've worked with some, I can't even tell you, mate, some of the best, forget level of work, but some of the best people in the world, yeah, who, even when I went through a bit of a tough time, no one ever took my coaching ability away from me, regardless, yeah. No one can ever take that from you. No one can ever take who you are away from you. And it's the same with some of them people. Is football's a tough game, and life's tough. Life's tough, mate. You know, and you know, sometimes skill set you can get a bit stale. You get a bit stale in yourself. So having that open platform to share, to learn, to grow, so important. And I know some people go, oh, you know, stay off social media, but I think it's so important to like see what other people do. You know, whether it's something you don't learn, whether it's something you support what you're doing, or whether it's something you know you work together to go. Bloody hell, never thought about that. It's so important, mate.
It's like I say, it's just seeing different people's ways of doing it. And like you said, I'm so grateful that, you know, I was able to connect with you through there. Like you said about Christian, I've connected through Christian through there as well. And I'll put it this way, being from London, I don't think I would have ever had the opportunity to see the way in which people like yourself work and, do you know what I mean? That sort of thing. And having it on social media, it's allowed me to do that. And also as well, it's and I've always said this actually, like the reason why I set up the page in the first place and the reason why I did the podcast, honestly and truthfully, my first thoughts were it's going to be an opportunity for me to learn. That was what it was initially for. And then as time's gone on, it's like, well, actually, do you know what? Let me not be selfish. Let me share the learning that's being given to me, the insights, the experiences, the thoughts, considerations. So it's true. It's so true. And I think almost now, you know, and this is for me probably one of the barriers of working full time in football, is that it's always on your mind. So even when you're outside of football and you're not actually on the pitch, I'm doing it off the pitch as well. I'm looking through your Instagram, your Twitters and things like that, just to keep my mind fresh and active and relevant and recent as well.
But when you're at some clubs, what happens is when you're in an environment so intensely, yeah, some people have only ever been in that environment. And that's an issue because there's only one way of thinking, which is that way of that football club. But then when you go on tour, what I used to find was I used to love going away with different people. There's certain people who were just in one environment and like quite biased. When you come against a team from Spain or you come against a team, say, from, I think, like Holland, yeah, you've got two different ways which the kids are taught and two different ways the coaches work. But, you know, the Spanish are about winning, mate. Simple. It's about winning, yeah? Winning. But winning and tactically trying to outsmart you. The Dutch, you play Ajax, you know, it's very much around good individuals on the ball, but also tactically they rotate. They start to give them different ways and different formats and different methods of manipulating people. And you go and play the Italians, it's a war, innit? You know what I mean? But you've got to be able to change your mindset. Sometimes through previous experiences of losing or not losing, but certain situations, you can then go, when we did this, we can do that now. I remember this. And that's why, you know, having the knowledge to see what other clubs are doing, to know what other people are doing. You know, you never know when you need it. You know, Pep first come into City, 4-3-3, 4-3-3, 4-3-3, 4-3-3, 4-3-3. When was the last time he went 4-3-3? Like, it changed, you know. And now he's changed. I don't know, you know, I can't quote it. I'm not involved in that club, but Man City's team seem to play differently now, you know, which, you know, is good because at one point when we were at City, you know, we could play 4-3-3. It comes down to not just the coaching, but the players. If you've got exceptional players, they can make good decisions themselves. I always remember this. I always stand by it. There's a boy who will play on Man City's first team, yeah? I'd say that now. Nico O'Reilly, yeah? Fantastic player. Unbelievable player. One of the most passionate boys. Plays as a 10. He's coming through behind Cole and McAtee, yeah? He's the next one, I tell you. Like, from the outside looking in, yeah? Or if he doesn't, he'll go and play somewhere else. I'll tell you that now. And I remember we took this group on tour. And we went to Spain and we went to a competition which last minute we got invited in. And we were doing well. We like on the year groups, we were quite strong. You know, it works abroad, doesn't it? January to December.
Yeah.
And we got this team and I was like, we need to decide on what we're going to go and achieve when we go. So it's about, you know, supporting the learning, what we've been doing. It's about giving the players opportunities to develop and make their own choices. But we've also got to we had concepts, what we stood by. When the ball's here, you receive the ball like this. Your body shape's always open. Correct foot. You're on this side, it's this foot, this side, that foot, yeah? Just give yourself as many opportunities to do what you want to do. So as long as they were in place, what would be. But I thought we had a team what probably would underperform and we may come out of competition earlier because all the big hitters were in it. And this is a competition which they all want to win. They all want the badge, like King of Spain, all that. So we get through this group, then we get to the next bit. And I always remember, checking myself. And I remember, these Spanish are fucking banging drums, yeah? Parents are, fighting each other on the sideline. They're all drinking beer all day, crazy on the sideline. There's cameras, when you see the Olympic Games and the cameras come over you. and you can hear the teams like you've got Canal Plus tally like over you. Everyone in the academy building is watching the game live in the internet. So you're under a bit of P, no matter who you are. Yeah, you're under a bit of P. You know, you're getting emails left, right, and centre as well. Which that didn't bother me to a point because I always kept with the players. And I think the one time I ever like kind of got caught up in the moment was we were playing Sevilla and we won the game 1-0 in the quarters to get to the semis. So I'm going, lads, do you want to win this? Like, yeah, Rees, yeah, and all that. So I'm going in my head. I've got to try my best to win this for the lads, but still incorporating, not losing the learning, not losing where we were at. So we're in this game, so I'm going to Nico, set the ball, set. Because when we set it, we were going 2v1 against this defender, right? We had two talented players, and he kept doing it. And then this one time, he's not done it, and he stayed on the ball. And I thought, we're going to get done it because they were powerful. They were big, powerful boys, and we were September to December. They were January, February, March, April, May, June. So physicality at them ages are massive, and also where chronologically and biologically where the players were. Like, could be 12, but this guy looks 16. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, he gets the ball, makes this kid, Maradona, whips it top bid. And I obviously celebrating it. And I just had to step right away from everyone. And I went, wow. I remember after the game, we lost 2-1, right? We lost 2-1. We overachieved, but the lads dug in, the parents were so supportive. And it was the only time, and I've said this before, I said this when I spoke to Saul Isaacson, was it's the only time I've ever apologised and like, I've gone, look, I've learned a lot about myself today. And what I learned was the players sometimes, you got to remember how talented these boys are, or girls, yeah? What's in their mind and how quick they solve, problems, user initiative is unbelievable. The geniuses. But because you're on that sideline, you control that team. Sometimes you're trying to get your outcome, whereas they've got a better outcome. And being on them tours, I remember with Nico seeing him do that. It stuck with me. That I always tell that story because, do you know what? It's like some of these kids, they might not have the tools yet, but they've got the capacity.
100%. Yeah,
and that's where 100%. Development over results is massive at certain ages. And how brave are you to maintain that to what age?
Yeah, no, 100%. It's class because, and this is the problem, I think, there's so many effective coaches out there, but I was going to say unique about you, but I mean, just in terms of the sense of, there's not that many people that believe in something, but then also see it through as well. And I think that's credit to yourself and also players that you've worked with, people that you've worked with, to be able to get to that mindset. And like you said, how many people actually use that reflection, actually reflect on what they do? A lot of time it's the planning and the doing elements. Hardly anybody reflects on what they've done, why they've done it, and what that's led them to as being a person as well. So it's definitely incredible to hear. I was going to say, I mean, obviously, all these experiences are combined, I think, have obviously helped you to become the person that you are today, to become the coach that you are today. What is next for you? What's the kind of plan, the goals, the aspirations? Because somebody like yourself, you're so motivated, and I can see that there's still so much more in you, even if it's not directly you being the lead person, but the influence that you give to people. Yeah, you know what I mean.
I mean, listen, I've been offered all sorts. I've been offered all sorts of roles, and I'm a big advocate for mental health. A massive advocate for that. I've had people who I've looked up to as a kid come and knock on my door or thanking me for inspiring them. And I've been broken, mate. I was, I'm not afraid to say that through traumas in my life, things got hard and I had cardiac arrest. At one point got told to stop coaching forever, which, can you imagine? for me. Like, so where I've had to dig myself out of, football's kept me alive, mate. It's kept me alive, and it's not kept me alive as in I'm going to kill myself, but kept me alive as in my mind. Just, it's always given me something to give back, and that giving back's a big part of me. And you know, a big part of me is spent 15, 16, 17 years of my life every day on a bus, on a pitch, and you know, big part of my life is my little boy, and wanting to be the best father I can be, and you know, football takes over, mate. Football takes over. It takes over, and it's always going to be part of my life. You know, I enjoy being involved in other things, you know, business and stuff like that. And I just took time out, but consultancy work I really enjoy doing. I've done some mentoring as well, first team players, agencies, football associations, designed some programs for some football associations. You know, I enjoy having the freedom at the minute. Do I miss the nitty gritty of the games? Yeah, I do. Don't miss the travel. Don't miss the tour. But don't get me wrong. Listen, I've had some of the best times of my life on a bus and in a hotel. Like, I've had some hilarious times, and I think my time will come again. My time will come again. I've got to the point of, you know, falling in love with the game again. I think, you know, when you've done it as intensely as what I have, and having time out and stuff, you know, you have to reflect on what you've done, how well you've done it, what you could have done better. I think you have to do that in life. And the situation, me being where I am now, you know, it's an unbelievable opportunity I've been given. I'm so lucky to be able to come here, spend a lot of time on myself, doing the things I love, training, you know, etc. Meeting some fantastic people in the football world here, being with some of the high-profile people in sport here, other sports. You know, one thing what I'd say what's really improved me is being around a lot of people who are at the high game of boxing, cage fighting, tennis, you know, spending time with people in Wales who went to the Olympics, you know, in different sports. Like, you hear stories of how hard some other people in sport have it to learn, and how much time and commitment they have to give up to develop themselves. So football's going to definitely be my life and what I'm going to be doing. Managing, coaching, technical directing, you know, consulting. My number one at the minute is just being a dad, continuing to help and support as many people as I can with football, to continue being an ambassador with different organisations with mental health and supporting people with that within football, and also just day to day. I'm no different than anyone else. Mate. You know, I kind of went for a point where, you know, I see people walking around with a badge on the chest, and it means nothing to me. That I've sat here with flip flops and a pair of budgie smugglers, mate, with sunglasses on, hey, with a cup of tea. Hey, trust me, it's not a nice sight, but I sat here, you know, with a guy who's top of his game in the UFC, talking about how he's got to where he is, you know, and just general conversation, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Honestly, it's incredible to hear.
Got a job, there's a little bit of control on you, but I don't mind that, and I don't mind the pressure. You know, I love the you know, the fight, especially when I was in the female game. When we was in the female game, you know, in the WSL, chasing titles, being around some of them women was unbelievable. You know, funny, and also just that learning experience was amazing. And some of them now, some of the closest people I have in my life, you know, they're always here for them. I'm always on the phone for them. Any of the problems, it's Reese, Mark, we're not doing enough, can we get on the grass, whatever it is, you know. And it's not like I am coaching them, but the people who, you know, they supported me, they gave me 110% in the role I was in, you know, to give me the accolades, to give me the respect, to give me that little bit of recognition. and I'd always give that to them. You know,
No, 100%.
and they all still give me shit. They all still give me banter. They always take the mickey out of me. You know, they're always saying I can do more in the gym or whatever it is. Listen, that's never gonna go. That's never gonna go. But do you know what? When times were tough, mate, I found out who was really there. You know, you put a lot of time and effort into a lot of people in the game, and you find out, you know, who's there for the knowledge, who's there, you know, and who's there really to be behind you. I think that's important, because you look at a lot of managers take a lot of the same people to a lot of these places, don't they? People wonder why. Yeah. You know, loyalty is important, mate. Loyalty and respect and knowledge and experience, and working with people with the same mindset.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've got a lot of love and respect for the things you just said there about, you know, like you said, obviously, in terms of going into the future, like you said, first and foremost, wanting to be a good dad, then obviously looking at helping. Pretty much all of the other things were, you know, supporting and helping other people, which I think speaks volume of the type of person that you are, and support and love that you give other people. So it's really refreshing to hear that, like you said, when times do get tough, that there are really good people there for you as well. But look, honestly, Mark, it's been absolutely incredible. You are generally somebody that I look up to in terms of your inspiration of what you have done, in terms of what you're still doing. Like I said, it's not just about, you know, some people could turn around and say that you've achieved a lot. You have, but you still want to achieve more, and you still want to help more people. And
the last
you know,
thing I'm going to say to you is, I'll give you this, and I stand by this, is we could have won the Premier League, could have won the Champions League. Yeah, it's not about being a museum. It's about being a factory in life. Yeah. So I might not be in a role now, but trust me, I'm learning more and doing more than people who are in them jobs now. So when my time comes again, if and when, or if it's right, I'm going to be in 10 times a place of where I was, even though the work, what we did was fantastic. And it's about improving. Yeah. Whether you're in football or you're not, it's about improving. You're going through a shit time, you've got to want to change. You're on top of the world, you've got to keep wanting to stay on top of the world. You know, it's so important, mate. So sorry to interrupt. I just think that's so important that people hear that. People hear, you know, that is my mindset of life, is don't be a factory, don't be a museum, be a factory. You've got to keep producing.
No, I love that. Honestly, I love the way you've broken it down there, and it's so true. And also as well, the way you compared it, not just to football, but to life as well. And again, like I said, it speaks volumes of the type of person that you are and what you're about. But yeah, honestly, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. A real good insight for, like I said, selfishly myself, but then also as well for the people who will be listening and watching this. Where can people kind of get in touch with you? I mean, I will leave links obviously to the video.
So the best platform is Instagram. So you know, so my Instagram page is Rees8580. I'm sure you can share it out when you put this out as well. And you know, what I will say is, one thing what I'm really looking into at the minute is like globally, there's a lot of coaches who are asking me to do a lot, and linking in with people like yourself. I'm sure there's things we can do together, where whether it's seminars, webinars, whether it's days where people come over and you know, we deliver. And I think that's important. I think that's important that you share. You know, it doesn't just have to be with football organisations, or, you know, because you know what, some of my best knowledge shared has been walking around the football track, or being in the gym with other lads, or coming for a coffee, you know. And there's more than one way of skinning a cat's a way, not the way, innit? You know. So, you know, looking forward to linking up with people like you. I'm constantly just keep sharing. Like, I see things and I think, you know what? Like today, just being mindful of the learning process and developing yourself. I'll always drop things on there. My content is nowhere near as good as your content. It's not as glammed up, but listen, I try and just put on what I can. And I hope it helps. 100%.
100%. And yeah, like you said, I think people definitely need to go and check that out, because it's one thing hearing about it, but it's the second thing seeing it as well, and then it's obviously taking that learning of, like you said, where, when, how, why am I going to implement this into my own environments. But yeah, honestly, absolute pleasure and honour to have you on here today, Mark. And we'll keep in touch, but obviously wishing you the best of luck over the next period of time while you're over in Thailand. And I'm hoping that in some way, shape or form, you do get back involved in the game, because I feel as though having somebody like yourself in an environment, in any environment, is going to influence so many people. But yeah, honestly, respect you so much.
And look, I wouldn't, don't worry, mate. That's something which within time, I'm sure will happen. Key bit for me is, and I'll be honest, I'll be open and honest, is who you're working with. With, mate. I could walk into a job tomorrow, abroad or wherever, but it's what you're doing. It's when you've been doing this a long time, is and you've seen the full circle in many ways, not just one way, from this big to this big. Male and female now. It's important that people have got that full thinking mindset, and it's about the players. Anyone who deters from that, really, I think it's quite hard when you are so passionate. The best coaches aren't the richest people, mate. The best coaches, the amount of time you plan, you assess, you speak to your players, speak to your parents. If you got paid for every hour of that, mate, we'd be millionaires, wouldn't we? Me and you'd be sat on the beach now, mate, we're doing this. But that love and passion, and I think don't be wrong, you've got to look after yourself, but for me, I need to be around people like that. And I will quote, say, Nick Cushion now, who's at New York City. What a man. Time and effort. The amount of time we used to spend talking about them bloody women at Man City. And, that's before you even talked about the session. So,
yeah,
unless there's an opportunity with the right people, with the right club, thinking the right way, I'm just happy doing what I'm doing, keep sharing, keep helping people, keep learning myself, and just trying to be a good dad, mate, and trying to enjoy life, keep life as simple as possible.